Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. The second daughter of the general's manor, Lin Qingchu. If not for you blocking me from taking those appetite-suppressing pills during the Empress selection ceremony, how could I have been so humiliated before everyone? Lin Yushi's face was ashen. The fire of rage blazed in her eyes, and her icy gaze swept over me like the edge of a blade. She parted her lips and issued a command. Her maidservants immediately forced an appetite-suppressing pill into my mouth. I choked, erupting into a fit of coughing, and thrashed to break free from their grip. Both knees hit the ground as I frantically tried to retch the pill back out. Lin Yushi's face was twisted with disgust. She stepped back coldly, mocking me with a sneer. Do you really think doing that will let you vomit it out? It has long since dissolved in your stomach. In this lifetime, you will never again hope to bear children. Even if you marry into a noble household, you will soon be cast aside. My heart plummeted to the depths of an abyss. I had never imagined I would be reborn at this very moment, just before Lin Yushi had yet to raise her hand against me. My trembling fingers gently touched my face. It was still smooth and unblemished. She had not yet disfigured me. Why should you be permitted to marry into a prestigious household? If I am no longer destined to enter the palace and become empress, then a second daughter like you should not even dream of stepping foot into Wuan Marquis Manor as its mistress. The moment she finished speaking, Lin Yushi's vicious nature surfaced. Where are my people? Ruin her face, the servants forced me down to the ground. Lin Yushi's maidservant approached with a pair of scissors in hand. Just as the blades were about to plunge downward, I cried out as though gripped by madness, Qingchu is willing to break the engagement. Please, elder sister, take my place and marry into the Marquis Manor, become the most honored marchioness in the capital. The moment those words left my lips, Lin Yushi's eyes lit up. She gently raised her hand. Stand down. I let out a sigh of relief, but remained kneeling on the ground, not yet daring to rise. Now that Lin Yushi has lost face at the palace banquet, her path into the imperial palace is severed. But if she could become the wife of the Wuan Marquis, elder sister would still be a young lady admired by all in the capital, I said, my tone earnest, every word distinct. Qingchu knows she is indebted to elder sister, and is willing to remain in the temple to pray for blessings on elder sister's and mother's behalf. Lin Yushi's anger slowly ebbed. The servants around us gradually withdrew. I suppressed the satisfaction rising in my heart and bowed my head, kneeling before her, as the ancient king once endured hardship in patience waiting for his moment of triumph. When I entered the palace once more, I vowed to make all those who wronged me pay dearly. 2 days later, the general's manor, where I and Lin Yushi had been born and raised, received 2 imperial decrees. The eldest daughter was betrothed to the Eastern Palace. The second daughter was promised to the Wuan Marquis Manor, to become its mistress. The moment these 2 decrees arrived, the concubines within the manor were thrown into confusion. Father announced that because the eldest daughter must be given to the Eastern Palace, whether as a legitimate wife or a concubine, her status could not be lowly. Therefore, whichever concubine gave birth to the eldest daughter first would henceforth become the legitimate first wife of the general's manor. Not long after, First Madam feigned a fall and delivered her child early. Lin Yushi should have been born a month after me, but she was forced to come into the world prematurely, a child born too soon, frail and frequently ill. Father was furious, but First Madam cited a dream prophecy, that her husband's Yushi was the reincarnation of Empress Zhao Fian, and that she would one day captivate the imperial court with her dancing. Thus, from childhood, Lin Yushi had been trained to dance. From the age of 8, to maintain her figure, she began drastically limiting her food intake. Yet though years passed, her ice dancing had still never been perfected. Every time she began to dance on ice, the surface beneath her feet would shatter. Before Lin Yushi entered the palace to present herself to Emperor Xianwu, she had learned of a pill, the appetite-suppressing pill, that could make the body lighter. She intended to use it to enhance her dancing. But the pill also caused permanent infertility. I had intervened in time to stop her. I even urged her to abandon ice dancing altogether. But she was far too confident in her own skill. When she entered the palace before the emperor's watchful gaze, she stumbled, cracking the ice. Her dancing, the very foundation of her future, collapsed in that single moment. After being publicly shamed, Lin Yushi's rage became unquenchable. She forced me to swallow the appetite-suppressing pill, destroyed my appearance, and abandoned me in the temple's side chamber to live, or perish, on my own. Every night, I was tormented by bone-deep agony, writhing in the grass in unceasing pain. Before I died, I was in anguish beyond measure. Every organ in my body felt as though it were ablaze. I had wanted to give up, to let my body simply decay. But I could not resign myself to it. Why should someone as wicked as Lin Yushi be allowed to bloom brilliantly in the sunlight, becoming the most honored first-rank lady? While I had to suffer through illness, hiding in the dark woodshed, tears streaming silently, now I have been reborn into another life. Standing beneath the sunlight, recalling those days, I still feel despair. In this lifetime, I vow to make Lin Yushi taste the same bitterness and pain. On the day of departure, the moment word spread that I had to go to the temple to pray for blessings, Mother's eyes turned red. She could not bear to let me go. She pulled at my sleeve and said quietly, "Qingchu, it is all Mother's fault. She could not fight first, madam. All these years, Mother has always felt guilty. In my previous life, Mother wept herself blind for my sake and met a terrible end." My heart lurched sharply. I suppressed the pain in my chest. "Mother, your daughter is willingly going to the temple to pray for blessings for our general's manor. This is a good thing, do not worry." Lin Yushi, pleased that I was so compliant, smiled with satisfaction. She coughed delicately into her sleeve and came forward to see me off. "Qingchu, I am soon to be married into the Marquis Manor. Afterward, I will not be able to visit the temple frequently to see you." She lowered her voice, feigning affection before father. "Just be a good girl, obedient, relying on your frail health to win people's sympathy." I immediately took the cloak and draped it over her shoulders. "Elder sister, your health is too delicate. Do not linger in the cold air. Hurry back inside." Watching her figure depart, I turned and stepped into the carriage. I let the smile fall from my face. I clenched my cold fingers tightly. Memories of my previous life crashed over me like wave after wave. In that life, after she took my place and married into the Marquis Manor, it was not long before General Zhenbei came to the manor gates seeking a marriage alliance. He wanted me as his 7th concubine. General Zhenbei Weian was an old general, already 50 years old. I would have had to address his son as elder brother. He was known to enjoy tormenting women, driving them to lives worse than death. I feared I would not be able to hide in the temple for long before that calamitous marriage found me. My heart grew cold. A chill, vast and endless, flooded into my chest. Now I had only myself to rely on, I had to use every ounce of strength to escape this disastrous marriage arrangement. After entering the temple, I could no longer freely communicate with the general's manor. The temple ran on the principle of cultivation and devotion. One was not permitted to disturb its sacred rules. Each day, vegetarian meals were the staple. Mornings were for sweeping the courtyard and washing clothes. Afternoons were for copying sutras and sitting in quiet meditation. Fortunately, my previous life had been even more bitter than this. Such tasks were nothing to me. The abbess had expected I would not be able to endure it to the end. But to her surprise, after half a year, I had not only adapted, I could join the nuns in burning incense and offering prayers. Gradually, the abbess stopped making things difficult for me, and occasionally she would speak to me of the great affairs happening in the capital. For example, Lin Yushi had married out gloriously, welcomed personally by the Marquis into the manor. She had become the first-rank honored lady, the envy of all unmarried women in the capital. Or, the emperor was gravely ill, and a new emperor was ascending the throne. In my previous life, after I died, my wandering soul had drifted through the mortal world for half a lifetime. During that time, I had observed Emperor Shintingji, a man of remarkable filial piety. In secret, he had come to dwell in the temple, praying for blessings for the dynasty. Though he lived in the temple, none knew his true identity. I calculated the time. It must almost be the day when the new emperor would come to the temple. Abbess, the temple has been swept so immaculately recently. Is someone about to arrive? The abbess smiled gently upon hearing this. You are quite perceptive. She explained that the visitor's origins were unclear, but his status was extraordinarily noble. Only the abbot knew the full circumstances, the others remained in the dark. So even the abbess did not know Shintingji's true identity. I suppressed the excitement rising in my heart, and a plan took shape in my mind. That day, Shintingji arrived at the temple in disguise, accompanied on the surface by only 2 guards. Through careful observation, I discovered that every evening he would travel the path behind the mountain to bathe in the hot springs. But he did not know that the road leading to the back of the mountain passed by a lake, a body of water nestled against the mountainside, bone-chillingly cold year-round, its surface sealed with a thin layer of ice. As night deepened and the temperature dropped further, that thin layer of ice grew thick and solid, and I, on the surface of that very lake, danced lightly in the moonlight. Having taken the appetite-suppressing pill, I had mastered ice dancing of breathtaking, world-stunning beauty. That night, I wore a thin garment that revealed my slender, graceful figure. The bright moonlight reflected off the lake's surface, and the silhouette of that man gradually became distinct. Shintingji approached slowly, his face noble and striking, his build tall and powerful, a pair of keen, cold eyes. His gaze fell upon me with composed steadiness. I danced at an unhurried pace, a thread of coolness stirring in my heart. I had never tried to attract someone's attention like this before. I did not know whether the fish would take the bait. I pretended to be lost in the dance, as though completely unaware he was watching. Only when the dance ended did I notice his gaze, deep, fixed intently upon me. Startled, I flustered, my light steps slipping on the thin ice. I scrambled down from the lake's surface, my face flushed red with feigned shyness, my whole body trembling. I pretended to run too hastily and stumbled, falling into his arms. His warm body pressed close, I sank softly into his chest. He caught me tightly. Perhaps because I had taken the appetite-suppressing pill, my body was nimble and slight, my skin smooth. Pressed against him, against the solid warmth of his chest, my heart hammered frantically. I had never been so close to a man before. The storybooks all said that if a woman was intimate with a man, her body temperature would rise and her heart would race faster. It turned out that was all true. Looking up into his deep eyes, my tears fell in streams. I hid in his arms and sobbed quietly. Shintingji frowned at the sight, his voice low and rough. "Why are you crying?" I said nothing, my silence an implicit acknowledgement. "You saw me dancing," I finally whispered. "If you tell others, if the great master and the abbess find out, I will be expelled from the temple." I unconsciously looked up, my eyes glistening with unshed tears, utterly pitiable. He saw how forlorn I appeared, his throat moved slightly. His expression shifted, and he averted his gaze. Then, as if suddenly realizing I was still in his arms, I hastily pulled back, my voice trembling as I pleaded, "Please, young master, do not speak of this. Forget tonight ever happened." Shintingji feigned composure and nodded. I let out a breath of relief. "Many thanks, young master." As I turned to run, I deliberately let my handkerchief fall to the ground. Embroidered upon it was my name. By the time Shintingji picked it up, I had already run far away. The following day, Shintingji did not come to find me. I also did not return to the frozen lake. Not until a week later did I encounter him again at the back of the mountain. I hid in a corner and stole a glance at him. He seemed genuinely surprised to see me, and immediately walked toward me. "Why is Miss hiding here?" When I stood up, both legs had gone numb. I stumbled unsteadily and bumped into his arms. He held me tightly, his gaze involuntarily rising to take in my face. I bit my lower lip and asked softly, "Young master, have you happened to see a handkerchief I lost here?" Shintingji's eyes brightened. Keeping his expression perfectly still, he said he had never seen it. I drooped my head in disappointment and slowly withdrew from his arms. This time, I had deliberately dusted myself with a light, refreshing fragrance, one that made anyone who caught its scent feel invigorated and clear-headed. That handkerchief was embroidered by my mother herself. I would ask the young master to please keep an eye out for it. After Shintingji agreed, I asked him, "Young master, could it be that you are a guard in the service of the great master?" His expression shifted to one of surprise, his eyes full of astonishment, but he played along with a light cough and said, "Let us not speak of that." Shortly after, Shintingji made an arrangement with me. If I wished to come and practice dancing here, I was welcome to continue doing so. No need to mind him at all. He cleared his throat and added with some difficulty, "I can stand watch for Miss, so that no one else discovers you." From then on, Shintingji came to the frozen lake every evening to wait for me. And I gradually grew closer to him. Yet he never revealed his true identity, and I only regarded him as a guard. He asked me why I had come to the temple. I said simply that I was here to pray for blessings on behalf of my family. Shintingji seemed to resonate deeply with my words, but he did not know that my primary reason for coming here had been to draw him in. Watching this fish grow plump and full, I almost had him on the hook, but before I could fatten my fish to the right size, Lin Yushi suddenly arrived at the temple. She went directly to have her servants drag me into the woodshed. Her ruthless gaze settled upon me. She looked me up and down from head to toe, her expression darkening. "I thought you would be suffering and atoning in this temple. I did not expect you to be living so comfortably." I trembled, hunching my shoulders and bowing my head. "Elder sister, Qing Chu does not understand what you mean." Lin Yushi shot out her hand and seized me by the throat, then backhanded me across the face. Half my face erupted in searing pain. I did not dare to move. "Even here in the temple, you have not corrected that despicable nature of yours. You still dare to tempt the guards. You are truly incapable of enduring loneliness. My heart lurched with fear. I immediately understood. Lin Yushi must have placed informants around me. Everything that happened at the temple was known to her, including my mastery of ice dancing, and the thing she had so desperately coveted. Seducing a guard was a minor matter. But mastering the ice dancing she had always craved, that was the real issue. Men, come here, break her legs for me. I immediately folded my legs beneath me and knelt, pleading, elder sister, Qingqiu has never done anything to cross the line. She has always stayed in the temple, praying for elder sister's blessings. Lin Yushi let out a cold laugh. Saying such things now is useless. Break your legs, and then we'll give you to General Jinbei Weiyan as his bride. That would be far more entertaining. In an instant, my entire body went cold. I understood in a flash why Lin Yushi had come to the temple. She had come to take me back and hand me over to that 50-year-old general. Weiyan had taken 6 concubines in a single wedding. Some he had simply dragged home by force. Everyone in the capital knew that Weiyan was decisive and ruthless, utterly without mercy toward women. Lin Yushi's eldest sister is valiant and mighty, in the prime of her youth. Being given to him as a concubine is no loss at all, came the mocking voices. Every soul in the capital knew. I gripped Lin Yushi's sleeve, pleading, this one is willing to remain unmarried for life, to stay in the temple forever and pray for elder sister and mother. Lin Yushi let out another cold laugh. You want to pray for me? There is more than enough time for that. It is not yet your turn. Her expression turned frigid as she commanded, why are you all standing there? Get on with it. I clenched my teeth, both fists balling tightly. Even if it meant waiting, I had to protect my legs. Before I could even rise to flee, First Madam arrived wearing an expression of open displeasure. Yushi, if you are going to act, be quick about it. Don't cause a death. She pulled out a handkerchief and looked at me with naked contempt. You and your mother are both equally useless. Being given to General Weiyan is already a fortune for someone like you. Besides, if General Weiyan learns you have been consorting with that guard, flaying you alive and stripping your tendons before throwing you in a mass grave would be your fate. With that, First Madam raised a hand and said lightly, get on with it. I leapt to my feet and ran. But before I could reach the door, the woodshed entrance was slammed shut from outside. I hammered desperately on the door, screaming hoarsely, let me out. The servants behind me yanked me back and hurled me to the ground. They raised wooden rods, ready to bring them down on my legs. I bit my lower lip until the taste of blood filled my mouth. After all the meticulous planning, was it all going to end in failure just like this? Staring at the triumphant faces of Lin Yushi and First Madam framed in the window, the hatred in my heart surged to unbearable heights. Lin Yushi smiled and said, Qingqiu, I knew long ago you would never be content to stay in the temple. You cannot let go of your feelings, can you? First Madam's expression hardened. Coldly, she said, enough talking. Break her leg and say she fell on the way down the mountain. Before the rods could strike, a sharp, penetrating voice of an imperial eunuch suddenly rang out across the entire temple. His Majesty has arrived. Everyone froze. Every face blanched. Only then did Shintingji step forward from the crowd, clad in imperial golden robes, his eyes filled with a piercing, bone-chilling cold that swept across each person in turn. The appearance of Shintingji made Lin Yushi's face drain of color. She immediately dropped to her knees and kowtowed in terrified ceremony. Then, beside her ear, the low, unhurried, ice-cold voice of Shintingji sounded, Lin Qingqiu, second daughter of the Lin clan, a woman of fine virtue and complete talent. She shall enter the palace and be received as a consort, conferred the title of Jiaoyi. Silence fell over every person present, head of the 9 consort ranks, Jiaoyi of the 2nd grade, in an instant. The expression on every face transformed. And none more dramatically than Lin Yushi's. Her complexion went white as chalk, both eyes burning red, her emotions spiraling rapidly beyond her control. She slowly rose to her feet, about to step forward and accuse me of consorting secretly with the Imperial Guard, but before she could speak, First Madam grabbed her back tightly. I pressed my lips together to hide the curve at the corner of my mouth. Without evidence or proof, on the mere strength of one word, she wanted to accuse me? How truly disappointing. Had it not been for First Madam's interference, I genuinely would have liked to see what end Lin Yushi would have brought upon herself by trying to take that path alone. Shen Tingji raised a brow and looked my way. I understood his meaning at once. I immediately stepped forward, knelt, and gave thanks. This servant gives thanks for His Majesty's dragon grace. Shen Tingji gave a satisfied nod, turned, and departed with the eunuch. The moment he was gone, I rose at once and brushed the dust from my garments. You dared to raise your hand against this palace's person. You even spoke of breaking this palace's legs. That is a crime punishable by decapitation, elder sister. Lin Yushi's eyes blazed red, raw envy flashing across her face. Her whole body shook. She lowered her voice and pleaded, Jiaoyi consort, please pardon this one. Our father had no intention of laying hands on consort Nyang Nyang. Just a moment ago, she had been a noble lady. And I, in the blink of an eye, had become Jiaoyi. She had no choice but to bow her head and beg my forgiveness. I glanced at Xiao Dai once. The maid trembled in fright, her legs giving way as she crumpled to her knees on the ground. Clearly, her courage had already shattered. When I had come to the temple, I had brought only one person with me, Xiao Dai. No one else could have reported my affairs to Lin Yushi except her. Xiao Dai was my most trusted personal maidservant since childhood. I had always regarded her as a sister by blood. In my previous life, after I died, Xiao Dai took money and returned to her hometown. It was only now that I realized she had been sent away by Lin Yushi after completing her mission. As payment for her betrayal, Xiao Dai trembled violently as she stepped forward. I gave her a single look. In that instant, she understood my meaning. So Xiao Dai swallowed hard and walked forward, shakily raising her hand to slap Lin Yushi hard across the face. How dare you disrespect Jiaoyi consort? You deserve punishment. Xiao Dai glanced at me again. Seeing I gave no sign to stop, she had no choice but to continue delivering slaps, one after another. First Madam tried to intervene but was restrained by the palace guards. The sharp crack of each blow rang out louder and harder. Lin Yushi's cheeks swelled crimson, blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. But she did not dare to call out or resist. Her gaze upon me was filled with venomous hatred. Those eyes seemed to say, Lin Qingchu, I will never let this go. What a pity. I was no longer the Lin Qingchu of before, no matter what anyone said. Xiao Dai, in order to earn back my trust, could not afford to be merciful. She slapped 13 times in succession. Lin Yushi's eyes rolled back, and she fainted dead away. After entering the palace, I was conferred the title of Jiaoyi by Shen Tingji. He had only recently ascended the throne. The empire was not yet settled. No empress had been installed yet. Aside from me, whom he had personally elevated, the rear palace housed 2 other consorts, both women who had been married into the eastern palace together with him. I resided in Zhaohua Palace, not far from Yangxin Palace. On the very night of my investiture ceremony, Shentingji came to Zhaohua Palace. His cold, profound gaze moved slowly toward me with each deliberate step, carrying with it an air of commanding authority. "This servant pays respects to your majesty." He extended his hand and helped me to my feet, but then he paused, leaning in to sniff the air around me. My face immediately flushed, and I instinctively stepped back. Shentingji smiled, the corner of his lips curving upward. "She has been drinking wine." The strong wine had made me bolder than I truly was. Had I not drunk a little courage first, I feared I would never have been able to complete the wedding night ritual with him. I pressed my lips together and, a little bashfully, said, "Mama told me to serve your majesty well." Drinking a little wine would help me be more proactive. With that said, I leaned forward and gently pressed myself against his chest. Shentingji stood perfectly upright. His eyes half closed, concealing the amusement dancing in his gaze. He watched me quietly. "Very well. Let Jin see just how you serve." From the story books, I had learned, first touch, then kiss, then embrace. And so I wrapped my arms around his neck, rose on my toes, and pressed my lips to his. The casual, relaxed ease of his body suddenly went rigid. Sensing the change in Shentingji, I felt as though I had grasped some secret. I kissed him again, and with my fingers, helped him unfasten his robes. Shentingji simply smiled faintly, his laughter low and teasing. My face, despite everything, could not help but grow hot. "It seems you have learned quite a lot," I nodded. "One must have aspirations to learn." Then, glancing at our position, I added, "But is this posture comfortable for you?" Shentingji raised both brows, his robes half undone, every inch the graceful, windswept nobleman. "Bring out the painting. Let us try it together." I retrieved the drawing I had hidden beneath the pillow and handed it to him. At the time of the deed, I was a soul who had merely witnessed the affairs of men and women from afar, but had died far too young to truly understand such things, and had not the faintest interest in them then. Even now, I was still not fully at ease with it all. Shentingji studied the painting with me, half hiding his face to laugh. "Jin thinks he understands now," I asked in surprise. "Your Majesty has never." The consorts in the rear palace do not care for Jin. They were forced into this marriage by their clans. Jin has never pressed them. He paused. "Naturally, Consort Liang is an exception. Consort Liang has a pure, simple heart. As for whether she relies on Jin out of dependence or genuine affection, Jin cannot say. But she is still very young. Jin truly cannot bring himself to do such a thing to someone so young." With that, he casually tossed aside the painting and drew me into his arms. His fingers, slightly cool, grazed along my neck. "Tonight, let Jin be the one to serve you." That night, Shentingji and I completed the ritual of the wedding night. He was exceedingly attentive in his care, only the pain was rather severe. But I could see he was at ease, and I did not have the courage to ask him to stop. Who could have known he was capable of persisting the entire night? Shentingji appeared to have grown deeply fond of this matter. Every night thereafter, he would use the excuse of attending to me to come to Zhaohua Palace and help me out of my garments. But as time went on, it was inevitable that others would grow suspicious. After all, I was favored night after night, yet there was not the slightest movement in my belly. I had been made to drink the appetite-suppressing pill by Lin Yushi. If I continued for a long time without conceiving, it would invite no small amount of dispute. And Xiao Dai was still at my side. I could not risk my secret being exposed. She She had to be sent away first. Xiao Dai, I would like to eat some sweet cakes. Go speak to the people at the imperial kitchen for me. Once Xiao Dai departed, I let out a long breath of relief and immediately sent someone to summon Imperial Physician Su from the Imperial Medical Bureau to take my pulse. As the physician examined me, his expression grew more and more troubled. My heart rose and fell with anxious dread. Consort Nyang Nyang, have you perhaps ingested something you ought not to have? Without speaking, my silence enough of an answer, Imperial Physician Su was perceptive enough to ask nothing more. Nyang Nyang's body has been greatly depleted. Your constitution leans toward cold. It will be difficult to conceive. Upon hearing this, my heart stopped for a full beat. I tightened my grip around the handkerchief. A terrifying thought flooded through my mind. If I went long without conceiving, everyone would grow suspicious. And none more so than Lin Yushi, who hated me to the very marrow. She would surely step forward and fan these rumors into flames. Would everything I had worked so hard to achieve ultimately be destroyed by her hands? I had heard that recently Lin Yushi and consort Liang had been keeping unusually close company, which I could not afford to ignore. Imperial Physician Su immediately sought to comfort me. Nyang Nyang, do not be anxious. This physician will prescribe a formula to aid in conception. I can assure you, Nyang Nyang, that you will soon carry the imperial heir. He then gave me a thorough explanation of my current state of health. Fortunately, because I had not taken the appetite-suppressing pill over an extended period, it had not caused lasting damage that would render me permanently barren. The heart that had been suspended in dread finally settled back into place. From then on, every day I would feign a headache and drink my medicine. Xiao Dai stood watch at my side. Seeing me drink medicine day after day without improvement, she asked worriedly, Nyang Nyang, you have been taking so much medicine and yet you do not seem to recover. Should we not invite a physician to examine you? I set down the bowl of medicine and gave a dry cough. There is no need. It is merely some minor ailment. With that, I produced the interlocking lock and gently stroked it a few times. This lock had originally been a matched pair, but now only half remained in my possession. I wore a face full of melancholy. Xiao Dai, hiding within the deep palace walls, it is only because you are here beside me that this palace can feel at ease. I gazed at the interlocking lock again and let out a long sigh. This palace truly misses the days at the temple. Those were the most free and unfettered times. Xiao Dai clasped my hand and offered comfort. Seeing she had fully bought into it, I could not suppress a quiet smile. Months had passed since I entered the palace. Word had it that first madam standing in the general's manor was rapidly declining. Father had redistributed half of the household management authority into mother's hands. Just as I had expected, my dear elder sister would soon be unable to sit still. Sure enough, waves of turmoil began to sweep through the palace. Rumors spread throughout the entire rear palace. Word that I was constitutionally unable to conceive. In no time at all, people both inside and outside the imperial court were speaking of it. They said that this newly favored consort of Shintingji had been born barren, incapable of bearing children to carry on the imperial line. I had planted informants at the Marquis Manor specifically to monitor Lin Yushi's movements. But the intelligence that lately reached me was this: Lin Yushi was pregnant. And while I was being cursed by the common people of the capital as a disgrace to womanhood, the matter had even reached the ears of the Empress Dowager. I was summoned by the Empress Dowager's attendant to Jingda Palace for an audience. Seeing the Empress Dowager, dignified and noble in her bearing, my heart trembled with nerves. This servant pays respects to Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Long life and boundless fortune to Nyang Nyang. The Empress Dowager gave a slow, measured sound of acknowledgement. Her gaze swept across my still flat abdomen. You have been favored by the emperor for many months, yet there is not the slightest movement within. Is the rumor spreading through the palace actually true? I immediately knelt, lowering my voice. The imperial physicians have examined this servant. Not one of them has ever said this servant suffers from an ailment preventing conception. Upon hearing this, the Empress Dowager's expression softened somewhat. She waved her hand, and the attendant immediately led forward an imperial physician who had been waiting outside the hall. My eyelid twitched once. The Empress Dowager had come prepared. If this is not the truth, then let the physician examine you. This servant gives thanks to the Empress Dowager's gracious kindness. The imperial physician entered and began to take my pulse. First, he frowned, then his expression gradually relaxed. After finishing, imperial physician Su knelt directly before the Empress Dowager. This physician congratulates Her Majesty the Empress Dowager. Joey consort is with child. The imperial heir is healthy and strong. Throughout this period, I had continued drinking the conception-aiding medicine. By careful count, it had indeed been some time since my monthly cycle had visited me. I had always assumed it was the appetite-suppressing pill disrupting its regularity, but never had I imagined I was actually with child. The Empress Dowager was overjoyed beyond measure. Is this truly so? She immediately removed her white jade Buddhist prayer beads and clasped them around my wrist. Everyone is anxious for the future of the imperial house. You must rest well, put your heart at ease and nurture the imperial heir. I touched the prayer beads and smiled softly. This servant thanks the Empress Dowager. The news of my pregnancy spread throughout the imperial palace within a single day. Shen Tingji announced the joyous tidings to his court, prompting the assembled ministers to offer their congratulations one after another. During this time, I remained in a state of careful repose. I did not dare to be the least bit careless. Conceiving at all had been no easy matter. Not long after the pregnancy had settled, Shen Tingji held a banquet in the palace to celebrate. It was not customary to make such a grand display of a consort's pregnancy in the rear palace, but Shen Tingji insisted this was his firstborn child and that it deserved special acknowledgement. And so the Marquis Manor sent Lin Yushi. While father brought mother, and all gathered to attend together, seeing mother again after so long, her garments and manner of dress had changed considerably for the better. After all, now that I was Joey, her days in the general's manor would be far easier than before. Lin Yushi's belly was prominently rounded, her complexion rosy and radiant, her face full of happiness. The banquet had not yet begun. Shen Tingji was still in Yangxin Palace, when Lin Yushi suddenly turned a cold, self-satisfied smile my way. I did not understand what she was smiling about, but a sense of foreboding rose within me. It was only when Lin Yushi and Consort Liang stood together in the same spot that my heart seized. Consort Liang stepped forward with determination. Her sharp gaze landed upon me. She lowered herself into a bow and said evenly, "This servant respectfully reports to your majesty. This servant wishes to accuse Jiaoyi consort Lin Qingchu of secretly consorting with one of your majesty's shadow guards." My heart lurched. My hand slipped, the teacup fell. That despicable Lin Yushi. She had manipulated Consort Liang, young and easily deceived, into acting as her instrument, sending her forward to accuse me. And she herself could stand outside it all, untouched, the moment those words were spoken. Every person at the banquet fell silent. All eyes turned upon me. The Empress Dowager's expression darkened with fury. "Consort Liang, do you have evidence?" Falsely accusing a Jiaoyi is a grave crime. Consort Liang held her back straight, her voice steady and solemn. This servant has a witness. It is said that when Jiaoyi consort was residing at the temple, she was not content to abide by the rules. She secretly met with a shadow guard at the frozen lake behind the mountain. At those words, the Empress Dowager's expression shifted sharply. With thunderous fury, she shouted, outrageous. In an instant, every person in the hall fell to their knees. I knelt upon the ground. My expression perfectly still, and said softly, "This servant has had no involvement whatsoever with any imperial guard. I beseech Her Majesty the Empress Dowager to discern the truth." Consort Liang let out a cold laugh. "Jiaoyi consort, even the personal maidservant Xiao Dai at your own side has confessed with her own lips that you and the imperial guard had an illicit liaison. Do you still wish to deny it?" I feigned astonishment and raised my head, my eyes wide with disbelief. Xiao Dai, kneeling beside me, immediately rose and stepped forward. "This servant respectfully reports to the Empress Dowager. This servant personally witnessed Nyang spending whole days in sorrow, clutching the interlocking lock and lamenting to herself. And recently, this servant discovered that the other half of the interlocking lock was in the possession of one of the imperial guards. The interlocking lock at my waist, only half of it." I clenched my hand. The cold intent in my eyes intensified. Looking up in that moment, I met Lin Yushi's gleeful smile. She had pushed Consort Liang forward to file the accusation, yet she herself remained entirely beyond suspicion. A truly brilliant scheme. Consort Liang stepped forward and produced the half-lock from my hand. "This is the token of their affection." The Empress Dowager's expression transformed, rage blazing in her eyes. "Lin Qingchu, what do you have to say for yourself now?" I bowed my head and placed the interlocking lock into the attendant's hands with trembling fingers. My voice broke. "This servant's sincere devotion to His Majesty, heaven and earth are witness. If your Majesty does not believe, please conduct a search." The Empress Dowager commanded that Zhaohua Palace be searched in its entirety, including the quarters of the imperial guards. The ministers at the banquet erupted into heated murmuring. Father and mother's faces grew increasingly stricken. The Empress Dowager's cold, sharp eyes swept across me. Her expression had grown grave. She clearly did not believe me now. Xiao Dai had spoken clearly and in detail. There was even material evidence. No one could explain the situation away. Very quickly, the eunuch who had been sent to search returned with the other half of the interlocking lock, found in the imperial guard's quarters. The attendant stepped forward and compared the two pieces. They fitted together perfectly. In that moment, the Empress Dowager slammed both pieces of the lock to the ground in fury. "Brazen woman! You are a Jiaoyi of the dynasty, yet you consort illicitly with a palace guard. And the child within your belly." She could not bring herself to finish the sentence. Her chest heaved violently. Consort Liang then knelt and lowered her voice. "Empress Dowager, Jiaoyi consort and the imperial guard had already been conducting their liaison half a year ago, in the temple. I fear that what is in her belly is not a royal heir at all, but a bastard child." Filth-laden words erupted throughout the great hall. Those assembled cried out that this was an insult to the imperial house, a disgrace to the dynasty. Such a woman ought to be executed by the most severe penalties. And all 9 of her related clans put to death along with her, with both witness and evidence now present. "Lin Qingchu, do you still have anything to say?" "Lord Lin, is this the daughter you raised?" Without a shred of dignity, the fury of the assembled voices swelled. Every person there seemed to wish they could tear me apart into 1,000 pieces. Lin Yushi watched me with triumphant pleasure, as if to say, from the time we were children until now, you have never been as clever as I. And even now, at this very moment, men, seize Lin Qingchu. The Empress Dowager immediately issued the command. In an instant, all the palace guards moved toward me, but before they could draw near, a voice of absolute authority rang out from the great hall. Who dares to call the blood of the imperial house a bastard child? Drag them out and execute them at once. Shintingji stepped in one measured stride after another. His presence radiated a cold, unyielding chill. He reached out his hand and helped me rise from the ground. Are you all right? I weakly fell against him, my eyes brimming with unshed tears. Your Majesty, this servant has been wrongly accused. Seeing this, the Empress Dowager grew even more furious. She stared at the Emperor. Anyone you favor, no one else can say a word about it. Anyone, no one can tolerate having such a vile woman beside you, harming you. With that, she looked at the attendant. The attendant immediately brought the interlocking lock from the ground and presented it to Shintingji. These two halves fitted together prove that Lin Qingchu and the Imperial Guard were in a liaison. Both witness and material evidence are present. She cannot argue her innocence. Looking at the Empress Dowager's unyielding stance, Lin Yushi grew even more triumphant. She believed that no matter how favored I was, the Emperor could not protect me. What a pity. She was about to be sorely disappointed, because in the very next moment, Shintingji produced a perfectly identical interlocking lock. He casually tossed one of the half pieces aside, keeping only the piece I carried, and when joined to his, the two fitted together just as perfectly. The Empress Dowager's eyebrows furrowed in bewilderment. The smile at the corner of Lin Yushi's lips instantly collapsed. Shintingji raised a single brow and said evenly, "Is it not just a lock? Zhen has one too." In the blink of an eye, every person in the hall went blank. What was happening? Shintingji set the interlocking lock aside and said with perfect composure, "Not only Zhen, even the servants of Zhaohua Palace, down to the eunuchs of Yangxin Palace, all have one." At his words, the servants and eunuchs immediately produced their own interlocking locks from their belts. The corner of Lin Yushi's lips twitched. Her gaze turned dark as it fell upon Xiao Dai. "Are you all right?" Xiao Dai was immediately frightened into kneeling. "Nyang Nyang, Your Majesty, this servant begs forgiveness. This servant knows she was wrong. If the one who favors you does not give you an interlocking lock, that means she does not acknowledge you." Shintingji's eyes grew cold. His voice cut through the air. "Take that one out and give her 40 strokes." The entire room fell into a stunned silence. Xiao Dai crumpled to the ground. She crawled frantically toward me, wailing and weeping. "Nyang Nyang, please beg for mercy on this servant's behalf. This servant was wrong. Nyang Nyang, please spare me just this once. Once an arrow has been loosed, it cannot be called back." If she had chosen this path, she would have to pay the price. Xiao Dai screamed herself hoarse as she was dragged out of Zhaohua Palace. The hall fell into a stillness. The Empress Dowager let out a quiet sigh and lowered her voice to ask, "Then the matter at the back of the mountain at the temple, was that also fabricated?" As she spoke, the Empress Dowager's sharp gaze rose to rest directly upon Consort Liang. Consort Liang trembled with fright and did not dare to utter a word. Shintingji then, of his own accord, acknowledged it. That matter did occur. He took my hand and said with perfect ease, "The matter at the back of the mountain was between Qingchu and Jin alone. It had nothing to do with anyone else. That lake was the place where Zhen and she pledged their hearts to one another. for it to be twisted by others into a place of illicit liaison and defilement. What crime is that? Consort Liang immediately knelt and prostrated herself, begging, "Your Majesty, please forgive this servant's transgression." This servant was also deceived by that lowly maid. Shintingji's expression turned frigid. Cold anger rose in his eyes. Consort Liang harbored malice without cause and falsely accused Zhaoyi. She is to be escorted to the cold palace. She shall not leave for the rest of her days. Consort Liang collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. Tears streamed endlessly down her face. She was only 14 years old, manipulated and exploited by another, and now condemned to spend her entire life locked away in the cold palace. Likely a fate even worse than death. Consort Liang's eyes went hollow with despair as she looked toward me. "Elder sister, I was wrong. Please, I beg you to save me." The greatest mistake she had made was placing her trust in Lin Yushi. Throughout the entire ordeal, Lin Yushi had stood entirely outside of it, untouched, uninvolved. Right until the moment Consort Liang turned on her. Why was it false? Clearly both witness and evidence were present. Why was it all false? They all deceived me. You all deceived me. Everyone tricked me. The Marquis immediately moved to shield Lin Yushi. He ordered someone to escort Consort Liang away. After Consort Liang was taken from the hall, I gently extended a hand to cover my belly, and weakly toppled into Shintingji's arms. Shintingji lurched in sudden alarm. "Qingchu," I swiftly gripped his collar and whispered against his ear, "This servant's stomach hurts." Every person in the room went rigid with shock. Not daring to draw a breath, Shintingji's face went pale. His voice thundered, "Summon the imperial physician at once." Imperial physician Su stumbled in with his medicine chest, blanching the moment he saw Shintingji's expression. He did not dare to raise his head as he took my pulse. When finished, his voice trembled. "This physician respectfully reports to your Majesty, Nyang Nyang's condition presents no cause for alarm. It is likely she was frightened. This physician will prescribe a formula to calm the imperial air." Upon hearing this, the tension in Shintingji's face finally eased. He let out a quiet breath of relief. As imperial physician Su prepared to depart with his medicine chest, I immediately spoke up. "Imperial physician Su, this palace can see that Marchioness Lin is also with child. Why not take her pulse as well, for peace of mind?" Lin Yushi's expression changed. Her body was also trembling. She lowered her voice repeatedly. "This one is grateful for consort's kind intentions, but father has already invited physician Chen to examine me. The child is healthy. I would not trouble consort to concern herself." I turned my eyes to Shintingji, pressing my lips together. "Your Majesty, this servant only meant well." Shintingji's gaze swept toward the Marquis. The Marquis immediately offered gentle persuasion. "My lady, this is Imperial Physician Su. Having him examine you is the kind intention of Consort Nyang Nyang and His Majesty." How could we refuse? Seeing that Lin Yushi could not escape, she had no choice but to sit down obediently. I curved the corner of my lips into a smile. Did Lin Yushi truly believe she could withdraw from this intact? As Imperial Physician Su examined Lin Yushi, his brow furrowed more and more tightly. His expression grew heavier by the moment. When he finally rose, I immediately asked with apparent concern, "How is she?" Imperial Physician Su knelt slowly, his voice clear and resonant, carrying through the entire great hall. "This physician respectfully reports to your Majesty, the Marchioness Lin is not with child." The moment those words fell, every person in the room went speechless. Lin Yushi's face turned chalk white. Cold sweat beaded at her temples and instantly dripped away. The Marquis' expression shifted, his face darkened with fury. I let out a startled cry. Imperial Physician Su, please do not speak carelessly. The Marchioness' belly is so clearly prominent. How can she not be pregnant? Imperial Physician Su let out a sigh and, with great gravity, spoke the truth. The Marchioness is indeed not with child. Furthermore, there are signs of a recent miscarriage. He shook his head, his expression full of regret. Marchioness's constitution is delicate. She does not carry easily, and even if she were to conceive, she would struggle to hold the pregnancy. I am sorry to speak so plainly, my Lord Marquis, but I fear the Marchioness will find it difficult to bear children in the future. I would implore the Marquis to seek another physician of higher skill. The Marquis' expression went utterly grim. Every gaze in the room fixed upon him as though watching a spectacle. Many of the ministers could not hold back their smiles. Lin Yushi's complexion turned white as a sheet. Trembling with fright from head to toe, she collapsed in a dead faint on the spot. The attendant rushed forward to catch her, and in doing so, pressed against the false stomach Lin Yushi had been wearing beneath her garments. At this banquet, the Wuan Marquis had been stripped of every last shred of his dignity. The moment he returned home, he served Lin Yushi with a letter of divorce. The first-rank lady envied by all, reduced overnight to the laughingstock of the city, Lin Yushi now had no recourse but to slink back to the general's manor and hide in First Madame's arms. Weeping in secret, but as it happened, First Madame's maternal family, whose position at court had long been under scrutiny, now came under direct investigation by Shintingji himself. The charges, corruption and embezzlement. I had grown up in the general's manor and watched First Madame live in lavish extravagance, spending with reckless abandon. That level of wealth could not have come from the general's manor's monthly stipend, nor from her dowry. It could only mean one thing, that First Madame's money had unclean origins. I rose and had someone prepare refreshments. Then I brought the lotus blossom cakes to Yangxin Palace for Shintingji to try. Seeing me approach, Shintingji set aside his memorials and reached out to receive me. Zhen has read no small number of medical texts. Pregnancy is hardest on a woman. You should rest in Zhaohua Palace. As he spoke, his fingers came to rest over the small swell of my belly. His eyes were full of warmth. This servant wished to come and see you, I said with a quiet smile, leaning against him. Your Majesty has read medical texts. Surely you know that during pregnancy, it is better to move around more often? It is beneficial for the birth. He raised a brow. It seems Zhen's professional knowledge is rather insufficient. My eyes brightened. I took his hand on my own initiative. Your Majesty, this servant, since childhood in the general's manor, she has always been extremely careful and did not dare to act rashly. Mother always said she must endure, and must not provoke First Madame. But this servant once saw First Madame holding a luminous night pearl and giving it to her lead maidservant, and could not help but feel envious. Shintingji's lips curved upward in a smile that invited speculation. He said, with perfect composure, homesick. I opened my eyes wide in feigned surprise. Did he truly not understand? The luminous night pearl was of priceless value. An ordinary person would not possess something so precious. Father in his usual life preferred martial training, swords and drills. A general of his station could not possibly acquire a treasure like a luminous night pearl. But First Madame's maternal family held a position of the third rank at court, and their household was not without gold and silver, gemstones, and valuables. To be able to give a night pearl as a casual gift to a maidservant, the origins of First Madam's money were anything but clean. I leaned against him and lowered my voice. This servant Mrs. Mother, I had not truly expected Shintingji to take my words to heart, but he sent over 10 luminous night pearls and 3 kinds of precious jeweled ornaments as gifts. Not long after, Mother was also invited into the palace to visit me. This official pays respects to Joey consort Nyang Nyang. I immediately stepped forward and took her arm. Mother, what are you doing? Mother's face broke into a warm smile. She clasped my hands tightly. My child has already become Joey consort, and is carrying the imperial heir. Propriety demands that I observe the proper etiquette. Do not break the rules. It is thanks to my child that your maternal uncle has been granted a position in the military garrison, and that I now have standing to speak within the general's manor. I embraced her just as I had when I was small, resting my head against her shoulder. Tears slipped down silently. What I could do for her in this lifetime was only this much. Mother let out a sigh, though her voice could not conceal its joy. Not long ago, First Madam's maternal family was stripped of their properties and assets. They say it was for corruption and bribery. Even First Madam herself was implicated. She has been confined within the inner residence as punishment. Upon hearing this, I looked up at Mother in astonishment. So the words I had spoken to Shintingji, he had known it all. He had deliberately investigated First Madam's financial sources and the account books of the general's manor. Mother reached out and gently touched my belly, her face suffused with warmth. It's already the 9th month now, almost full term. Imperial physician Su says my constitution is not strong. The child may come a little early. Mother glanced at me and said softly, I brought someone to see you. She leaned in close and whispered a few words in my ear. After hearing what Mother said, my heart pounded wildly. How expected of someone who had spent years matched wits against First Madam within the general's manor. When Lin Yushi entered the room, I looked up at her with a cool gaze. Why has Marchioness Lin come to see this palace? Lin Yushi dropped to her knees with a heavy thud. She bowed her head and kowtowed twice, hard, with earnest desperation. This one begs Joey consort to save Mother. In consideration of the sisterhood between us, please save Mother. I walked toward her and looked down at her with a lingering gaze. Unable to suppress it, I laughed. On what grounds do you believe this palace would save you? Have you run out of people to beg, and so you have come to me? When you gave this palace the appetite-suppressing pill, did you ever think this day would come? When you wished to break this palace's legs, did you ever think of today? Lin Yushi's entire body trembled. Her complexion grew more and more wretched. She crumpled miserably to the ground, without the strength to offer any defense. It was all because I was foolish back then. I did not understand, and I laid my hands on Nyang Nyang. I immediately laughed and extended a hand to help her up. This palace was only joking. She is someone of the general's manor. For what reason would this palace not save her? Upon hearing this, Lin Yushi let out a breath of relief. Under my supporting hand. Just as she was about to stand, I suddenly stumbled and fell to the ground, barely catching myself on both palms. I crumpled in anguish, tears streaming down my face, clutching my belly with trembling hands. My belly. It hurt so terribly. Lin Yushi's expression shifted to one of shocked panic. She did not know what to do and stood uselessly to one side. The palace maidservant standing outside Zhaohua Palace immediately rushed in. Nyang Nyang, summon the imperial physician at once. My trembling fingers, eyes brimming with fury, fixed upon Lin Yushi. It was you who pushed me. If anything happens to this child, I will never forgive you. The moment those words left my lips, The eunuch outside the door immediately rushed in and seized Lin Yushi. In truth, I had deliberately laid my trap for Lin Yushi, leading her to seemingly push me, creating the appearance of a premature birth. This way, Shintingji would not know the child had been born ahead of its time. An imperial heir could not afford any suspicion. Even a premature birth would leave behind whispers. This fall, I had controlled my force precisely. I had not truly hurt the child. Within the time frame that imperial physician Su had already calculated, the child would be born safely. And Lin Yushi, taken away, her face chalky white and her whole body trembling, was brought before Shintingji. Your Majesty, this subject's wife has never harmed Jiaoyi consort. I beg your Majesty to investigate with clarity. Before Shintingji could speak, Mother immediately knelt. Tears glistened in her eyes. Her voice shook. You led me to believe you had pure intentions. That is why I permitted you to enter and see Nyang. But I never imagined you harbored such designs against her. Every person of Zhaohua Palace saw it with their own eyes. You shoved Nyang to the ground. How do you dare to still deny it? I leaned against Shintingji's chest. Tears slipped silently down my face. I had already agreed to save First Madam on your behalf, and yet you still treated me like this. Every person present had already concluded that Lin Yushi had shoved me to the ground, causing the premature birth. Lin Yushi could not prove otherwise. She had no defense to offer. The coldness in Shintingji's eyes deepened. A glacial killing intent rose in his gaze. For the crime of conspiring to harm the imperial heir, take her to the imperial dungeons and await her execution. Lin Yushi trembled with such terror that she vomited a mouthful of blood right then and there. As she was dragged away, she did not stop screaming. It was all Lin Qingchu. She did this to me. I am innocent. Only those who were willing to remain silent could truly speak in the end. Lin Yushi would very soon learn how to hold her tongue, the way only the dead could. Shintingji himself bestowed a name upon the child, Shinmunian. After Shinmunian was named Crown Prince, I was conferred the title of Empress. On the night that I became Empress to Shintingji, he lay beside me and laughed softly in a low voice. You treated Jin as a pawn. Jin regarded you as his one and only wife. I leaned over and pressed a kiss to his eyes, then slowly moved down and pressed it to his lips. Shintingji went still. The words on his lips turned husky. Husband. In the year that Shinmunian turned 3, father surrendered his military command. Mother's brother, his uncle, took over as commander-in-chief. Shinmunian tumbled into my arms, speaking in his soft, childlike voice. Mother, when I grow up, I want to be like uncle, and become a great commander. I want to be a monarch who loves his country and his people, just like royal father. I bent down and pressed a kiss to his forehead. Remember well what you have said today. Do not forget it for the rest of your life. The end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.